Hey everybody, this is Pierre Quinn and you're listening to the Leading While Green podcast, where my mission is to help you live, learn, and lead with confidence. On this episode of the podcast, episode number 23, we'll be talking about considering things the first time around, the key to momentum, how to leverage wisdom, and the power of returns. So, listen up. Recently, I was a guest on the Embolden podcast with Anthony Bolden, and we were talking about the road to relevance, the road to relevance. I'll put a link to that podcast episode in the show notes. Really good talking with Anthony Bolden, an up-and-coming leadership influencer. And one of the things that crept into our conversation is how sometimes we can get caught up in watching the highlights of other people. We are enthralled about what we see them doing. We're enthralled by their followership, by their progress, about how many people know what's actually going on in their lives. And sometimes when we compare those, we, dare I say, idolize, those we want to emulate, those who we look to as a source of inspiration and creativity. Sometimes we're captivated by the wrong thing. Like, you're a singer and you find yourself looking at the videos of your favorite singers. You want to be an actor and you find yourselves looking at the award-winning performances of your favorite actors. You want to be an entrepreneur and you find yourself looking at the stock performance of entrepreneurs who started these big deal companies. And then you take a look back at your humble beginnings, at your desk, at your little laptop, at your bedroom office, and you say to yourself, well, how can I ever hope to get where they are? I think it's very important for us as leaders to really reframe these conversations about life and about leadership. So I was on YouTube just doing a bit of prep for this podcast episode, and I wanted to introduce you to Marques Brownlee. And I'll put the link to his YouTube channel in the show notes. Marques Brownlee, who goes by MKBHD. I think MKB are his initials and HD, high definition. MKBHD. On YouTube, he has 5.6 million subscribers. I'll say it again. He has 5.6 million subscribers. And Marques Brownlee he's really known as a tech reviewer guy. That's how he started. And he does all things tech. At this point in his career, he gets backstage passes, behind the curtain access to the unveiling of major technological innovations. And people know him for giving us some insights into this world and being on the cutting edge of reviewing tech. And you look at him in 2018 with 5.6 million YouTube subscribers. And for those of you who are just trying to start a YouTube channel or start your business or getting everything off the ground, you look at someone like Marques Brownlee and you say, how could I ever hope to get there? Well, what if I told you you were starting at the wrong point? You were starting from the wrong position, that your frame of reference is totally off because you're viewing things in the wrong light. And what if I told you that you needed to go back to 2009? Go back to 2009. Yeah. Go all the way back in time to 2009 to the first video from Marques Brownlee. The first video where he's reviewing his new laptop. And I'm telling you, when you watch that video, you're probably going to chuckle. Partially because when you look at Marques today, MKBHD today, grown, mature, adult, really doing big things in the world of entrepreneurship and tech. But you go back 8 years ago and you look at a kid. He was a kid. He's a kid with a webcam, and he's talking about his new laptop. Now, his videos today, wonderfully edited, smooth, great music, great feel, great lighting. But those videos from 8 years ago, that when he first started putting videos on YouTube, lighting was bad. I think he was just using the webcam on that came with his laptop. It wasn't flashy. It didn't have a great intro. He wasn't using a fancy mic. None of those things were happening. But from that rough start, and I remember watching the beginning of the video, and again, I'll put this in the show notes. I'll put his latest video, a link to his latest video, and then his first video in the show notes. And at the start of the video, I think because of the glare on his glasses, he takes his glasses off and he's really close to the webcam, and he's giving you the specs of his brand new laptop and the remote. And it's a good thing to watch because you can track how far he has come on his journey. And I think we would be much better served as leaders. We would be much better served as influencers, as artists, as entertainers, as entrepreneurs, as ministers, as athletes, wherever you find yourself on the leadership spectrum. We would be much better served not always looking at people's present day highlights, but going back to consider what life was like for them the first time around. Go back and look at some of these old audition tapes for stand-up comics. Go back and look at where some people who are stars now were kicked off of shows like American Idol because they just didn't have it. Go back and look where people had a business idea and it didn't work out the first time or the second time around, and then begin to track their progress over the years. And I would say that we would find maybe lessons that have a greater resonance if we look at people back when they started that first time around. Sam Chand, a church leadership influencer, big time church leadership influencer. I was speaking with Sam Chand a couple of years ago, and he said one of the biggest mistakes that new leaders make is that they're always trying to learn tips and insights from people who are much, much further along in life than they are. You're trying to learn from the CEO that's been at the game for 25 and 30 years. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But Dr. Chan suggested that it may be in our best interest as emerging leaders to reach out to people who are slightly ahead of us, who are not that far ahead and can remember what life was like when they started. So if you're trying to grow a YouTube channel, maybe you want to reach out to someone with a couple of hundred subscribers or a couple of thousand subscribers because they're just starting to build that momentum, and you can learn from their story because it's much closer to where you are than the person who has millions and millions and millions of subscribers. So I want you to go back to watch Marques Brownlee's first video and then find somebody with just a few more subscribers than you and tap into them and figure out how they did it. But what we see from MKBHD, from his story, we see in there the power of momentum. Now, I know an experience of life of false starts and stops, or starts and stops. I know what that's like. And usually, before I would have a good idea, I would have a good run. I would have a couple of speaking engagements in a row, some great conversations talking about the platform, what I wanted to do, and the people that I helped. And then you hit a rut. You hit a rut because of rejection. And as I said in a previous podcast episode, some of the breakthroughs that you're looking to experience in your leadership only come on the other side of no, and being willing to fight through the no's. But sometimes I would let the no's get me down, and I would be dejected. I would sometimes be a bit depressed and overwhelmed, and I would stop and I would lose that momentum. Darren Hardy, in his principles of success and his secrets about success, talks about the power of momentum and how once you got something started, you just sometimes you get to the point where you don't even have to nudge it much to keep it going. But once you come to a stop in whatever you're doing, it takes so much more energy to get your project off the ground, to get the team off the ground, to get the business, to get the ministry off the ground. It takes so much to get it started again. And we would be better off just continuing to nudge, especially during the times where we feel rejected, because we're jaded into thinking because of the entertainment industry, because of media, because of popular culture, because of social media. We're jaded into thinking, man, I'll take this one picture and I'll be a superstar, a major influencer next day. I'll submit one proposal and I'll have everything working in my favor. That's all I have to do. And we really cast a dark shadow on people's ability to see the hard work that goes into everything. And I want to challenge you in 2018 to keep going. I mean, just keep going. Take a line from Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. And I know it's cheesy. I know it's cliche, but it's true. Just keep swimming. Just keep going. Just keep trying. Listen, if you're a writer, I need you to write every day. Write something every day. It doesn't have to be a whole blog post. Doesn't have to be a chapter of a book. It could be 2 or 3 lines. It could be a inspirational social media post. Whatever it is, write every day. If you're a singer, sing something every day. Hum a tune in the shower. Practice your craft. If you're a speaker, practice speaking in some form or fashion every single day, even if that means just taking a children's book and reading the children's book to your kids before you go to bed at night. Keep that momentum up and do a little bit every day. And if you can learn to do a little bit every single day, you'll watch over time how your momentum builds and how this path that you're on it becomes a bit better to manage because you keep working at it. What kills us is when we get disappointed, when we get rejected and we stop. And I want to challenge some of you because we're barely out of the first month of the year. We're not out of the first month of the year. We're barely halfway through the first month of the year. And some of you, because of this rejection, you wrote down those New Year's goals or resolutions and all of these plans, but you hit rejection, you hit a roadblock, you hit some obstacles, and you're just like, I want to give this thing up, which is crazy because around July, you're going to try to start again. And it's going to take all of that energy to get everything started. So when you talk to your teams, when you talk to your colleagues, when you talk to people you support and who confide in you, and when you talk to your friends who are all trying to work on things together, just remind each other the key to momentum is to keep going. And once you stop, it's harder to get started again. I had 2 really good conversations this week with gentlemen who are older than I am. Conversations about life and leadership. And one conversation was pretty long. It was 2 hours. And the other conversation was about 15 or 20 minutes long. And from each of these 2 gentlemen, I was able to glean some nuggets, some insights, and some perspectives on life that, I really wasn't thinking in that direction. And that just underscored for me the potential we have to leverage the wisdom of others. I think it's an old adage that says it's smart to learn from your own mistakes, but there's true wisdom is found in learning from the mistakes of others, so you don't have to make the same mistakes yourself. And I want to challenge you to leverage the wisdom of other people. And here's how you do it. Stop being the smartest person in the room. Stop. Now, I don't want you to misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not saying dumb yourself down or don't speak out or don't try hard or don't work hard. What I am saying is work to put yourself in rooms where there are people with significantly more influence than you, significantly more experience than you, significantly more insight than you. Because when you're the smartest person in the room, when you're the point person, when you're the go-to person, it's difficult sometimes in a leadership capacity to learn when you're the smartest person in the room, when people are always asking you the questions, when you're expected to have all the answers, when you're the linchpin to the conversation. Sometimes it's difficult to learn when you always put yourself in that position. But there is an amazing value in being around people who have more influence, who have more wisdom, and who have more experience than you do. I was talking to a person who had served in executive capacity for a number of years, and he was just sharing with me some of the pitfalls to being a senior leader and how you really have to set up some guardrails so that you don't take advantage of the position that you've been given. And I'm telling you, as leaders, there's a huge temptation to take advantage of your position and really to sometimes manipulate people. Often it's emotional, because for a lot of us, there's things that we didn't work out in our childhood. We didn't work out growing up. We have these misgivings and apprehensions and esteem issues. And when we have been blessed to have a certain modicum of leadership and influence, sometimes the temptation is to force people to give us that respect and deference and honor, or even support that we didn't get as kids. But the truth is, leadership is a privilege, and people need to be able to trust you in order for them to feel comfortable with allowing you to lead them. And we were just having a conversation about trust and building that trust and building your team and empowering your team and admitting when you're wrong and how to navigate some of the difficult aspects of executive leadership and how to continue to push through and overcome. And that was a great conversation that I had over close to 2 hour long conversation of someone who is 15 or so years my senior, who has seen a lot of life. And I really just soaked it all in. Really, most of the conversation, I wasn't talking. Most of the conversation, I was just listening. I asked a few guiding questions here and there, clarifying questions, but I was just listening, just taking it all in, just soaking it all in. The other conversation that I had this week was with someone who is close to about 50 years in pastoral ministry leadership. It's 50 years of either serving as a church pastor, a church administrator, a church leader, a church influencer, 50 years. And our conversation was a bit shorter, but it was so many insights packed into that short conversation, and really just underscored for me the value of relationships. And he talked about how, at the end of the day, no matter how much you travel as a speaker, no matter how much people want to hear from you and how much influence that you can have, at the end of the day, if you have not poured into the relationships with people that matter to you the most, with your wife, with your kids, with your family, when your career is over, you'll have nothing. When your career is over, you'll be scrambling. So take the time now to be intentional about your relationships, to be intentional about your family. And he said that may mean that you have to cancel some meetings from time to time because you got to spend time with your family. Now, no one's giving you an excuse not to work, not to hold up your responsibilities, but we know the latitude that we have as leaders, and we don't have to be at every meeting. I know you want to, but we don't have to be at every meeting. And that's a reminder of the necessity of empowering our people and growing other leaders. It should really be on a track to really replace yourself. If you look at John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes, great book. I suggest that you get a copy. This idea of replacing yourself as empowering and growing and training other leaders. Because at a certain point in your life, it's not about you anymore. It's about the next generation. And if you have not raised up other leaders, there's a struggle or scramble to hold on to what you have because you're really looking for legacy and relevance. And your legacy and relevance lies in those that you have trained, empowered, coached, mentored to become leaders themselves. So just a reminder for me about, taking the vacations, canceling, rescheduling some meetings, carving out that family time, guarding it at all costs, so that I don't get to the end of my career as an influencer, the end of my career as a speaker or a minister or a consultant or in any capacity of leadership that I'm working in, to get to the end of that and have nothing, to get to the end of that and have no one. It would have been a waste of a career. And to do that, I really think to do that, it really demands that you return some stuff, that you give some stuff back. Now, I used to work in the retail industry. I used to work growing up. Where did I work? I worked at Target in high school. I worked at Burlington Coat Factory in my 20s. Where else did I work? Was that all my retail experience? I worked in a clothing store when I was a teenager as well. Did I work at Marshall's? I don't. Well, I've had some retail experience. Oh, I worked at a women's clothing store for a bit too. Charlotte Russe. I think that's how you say it. I can't remember. It's those popular women's clothing stores in the mall. They kind of all look the same. Well, one that I worked at a while ago was Charlotte Russe. So I worked in a retail industry, and I'm telling you, in the retail industry, one of the most difficult days to work is the day after Christmas. That day is one of the most difficult days to work because it is the day of returns. The most returns ever are the day after Christmas, that people realize that something does not fit. It was not their color. It wasn't the right gift. And they bring it back, sometimes to exchange it for something else and sometimes just to get their money back. And I realized that sometimes people are left with things that don't fit them because they won't go through the process of making a return. So recently I ordered off of Amazon some video lights because I'm trying to do this whole video thing. Talked to a couple of people and they say, man, you really got to do the video thing. So give us these video leadership segments with your face on it. And I said, all right, let's work on this. Ordered some video lights off of Amazon, and the lights were shipped. I set up the lights. I set up the first one. It worked well. I set up the second one and nothing. Flipped the switch, didn't come on. So I switched the bulbs to see if it was a bulb issue, and nope, wasn't a bulb issue. I was like, okay, this unit is not working. So I go on Amazon. I said, I want to make a return. They give me a slip to pass out. They said, okay, either UPS will come if you arrange, or you can drop it off at a UPS store. And then I realized I had to go through the process of repacking everything that I had unpackaged. And let me tell you, I was a bit annoyed. I was a bit annoyed to go through that plastic. I was a bit annoyed to go through that process of reboxing, of taking everything down, of folding everything up, of making sure it fits back in the box, of finding some tape in my house. I was a bit annoyed of going through that whole process just to send these lights back. In the back of my head, there was this voice, just throw the lights in the garage. It's all right. You can't use them. Just throw them in the garage and order something else. But I'm actually owed a return. I actually need to send this stuff back because it's not what I need and it's not working for me. And this year, really, some of us listening, we need to return some stuff. There is an idea of how you're supposed to live your life that is not really God-given. It was created by your culture or your parents or your friends, and you need to return that to sender. That's not for you. You have a particular relationship, and let me tell you, as a leader, all of your relationships impact your ability to lead and the scope of your leadership. All of the friends that you have, all of the significant others that you have, your marriage, it impacts your ability to lead. And some of us have made friends and are around people that are not helping us grow as leaders. And you need to return that thing to sender. These notions that you have about life, some things that you've taken onto yourself, even some of other people's problems that you've taken on and you've tried to make it your own, and you're trying to work this out for them, and you're trying to fix their life, and they're not really interested in fixing their own life, but you're trying to work these miracles on their behalf. You need to return that stuff to sender and to get your money back. You got to get your money back. I have a need. I have a need for video lights. I have a desire to share ideas about leadership in a video format. And in order to do that properly, I'm gonna need some lights. But in order for me to get the lights that I need to first return the lights that don't work. And someone who's listening to this who said, well, why can't you just throw it in? Why can't you just throw it in the garage? It's fine. It's fine. Just throw it in the garage and just buy another set. Well, if I begin the practice, or if I keep up the practice of keeping things that don't fit me, of keeping things that are not right for me, then eventually I will run out of space for the things that are supposed to be for me. I'll say it again. If I continue to be in the habit of keeping things that don't fit me and don't work for me, eventually I will run out of the capacity. I will run out of the capacity to have the things that are for me. And that requires that you return some stuff. That requires that you give some stuff back. And I know it's tough. Working in the retail industry, returns are tough. Nobody wants to stand in line. Nobody wants to rebox it. Nobody wants to go through the explanation. Nobody wants to hassle with the company of why you're returning this, because some companies give you a hard time. They want the receipt. They want the card you use. They want a DNA sample. They want a strand of your hair. They want all of this stuff to get just to return, just to accept the item back. They really want to know that you're not scamming them. But it's worth it to go through the process of giving something back that doesn't fit you, that's not for you, so that you can have the greater capacity to hold on to things that are for you. And I'm telling you, as a leader, you set the tone. You set the tone by your behavior, and you set the tone by your actions. And if by your behavior and your actions, you tell your team it's okay to hold on to things that don't work and don't fit anymore, then that's what they're going to do. And it's going to be much more difficult to move them from the place they are to the place where they're called to be. Well, hey, that's all I got for this episode of the Leading While Green podcast. Can you believe that we made it to episode number 23? All because I promised my mastermind group that I was going to make 52 episodes of this thing and then take it from there and see how things go. But it's been amazing being on this journey with you. And I need your help. I need you to like this podcast. If it shows up on your Facebook timeline, like the podcast. On iTunes, I need reviews. I need 5-star reviews with comments so we can take this message of effective leadership to the rest of the world. And it'll be amazing. It'll be an amazing thing to be a part of this leadership movement. So take a couple minutes, hit up iTunes, 5 stars and some comments. Share this on your social media so I can help not only you, but everybody around you and everybody you know live, learn, and lead with confidence. Until next time, take care and God bless.